Welcome to Round the County. I'm Ken Van Zandt. In a time when advanced machinery and high-speed technology have become a way of our everyday lives, ironically it seems we still have that need to surround ourselves with a certain amount of the old world charm. From refurbishing historic homes, restoring antique vehicles, or even recreating that rustic style of living with our modern version of the log cabin. Fortunately, we do still have a few of those craftsmen out there with the desire and skills to keep the art of the old world trades alive. One young man who lives right here in Tioga County has found his calling in one of the oldest trades known to man, the art of dry stone walling. It's easy to see that James Asbury has a passion for working with stone, which all began in the fields of his family's farm while taking on a part-time job.
The whole stone business started for me when I took a side job in school, my college years, and there was a crew that came here to our farm to take some piles of rock and turn them into cubes. And I started by going up with these guys right up here on the farm and learning how to make a cube of rock while going to school, just between my classes, making these cubes of rock and being paid by the piece. And that's basically where it started. This is the first pallet I ever stacked, and this is right here on the farm where I grew up. It's really cool to come back to it. I hardly ever get close to it. The pallet's coming apart. I can see it's 9, 10 years old now. Man, there's a lot of memories in this thing, and I can point my first stone. That's where it all started, right there, northeast corner on this pallet. Man, I look at this thing and it's like going to a monument in a state park for me. The history of stonework, it's about as old as biblical times, really. Many of them you can find on the western coast of Ireland. The Aran Isles have some very bizarre walls. Stonework, as most of us know it in this country, started right around the time that we started clearing the land, 1700s. Large piles of rock came up with tilling, and these long rows of stone were produced between fields, more or less just to get the rocks out of the field. Later on, around 1840, you have the boom of wall building, where farms went from subsistence to commercial, and large groups of people came over from the United Kingdom primarily, and they would take those long consumption piles and turn them into walls. And then actually we see a regression of walls when machinery comes into play. After John Deere started making tractors, the steel wheel tractor, etc., you could do more in a day, and a lot of those walls that were produced were actually removed because you could go and plow so much more in a day that you wanted to expand the size of your fields. At one point, there was enough wall in Connecticut that a person could build a wall from the northern part of Maine all the way around the eastern coast to where Texas meets Mexico. That wall would be about 6 feet high. That was just in the state of Connecticut alone. Only 5% of that is left today. Well, the craft of stonework relies on 4 basic principles. First off, you would lay a stone into the wall, being the longest piece, the longest face, the longest edge of the stone is laid into the depth of the wall. You have packing the wall, which is taking small pieces that presumably you have chipped off of the various stones that you're shaping and placing them in all the holes and under the various big stones, placing them into the center of the wall, filling all those spaces with clean chips of stone. You have battering the wall, which is a basic principle, where the wall has a certain narrowing as it gets toward the top. Instead of being plumb, straight up and down, it narrows as it gets higher. That way, if the wall ever moves out of plumb, it's actually moving toward plumb. If a stone moves out of the face and starts to make the wall wider, the wall is moving closer to plumb rather than away from it. And of course, 1/2, 2/1. But 1/2, 2/1 is the principle of laying one stone over the joint between the 2 understones in the prior course, breaking them up like bricks. Not exactly the way bricks are done on 50%, but similar to bricks. That way you never have joints going all the way up through the wall. Those are the 4 basic things that you must learn and that you must practice constantly before you move on to doing anything else. Other basic things, other known truths. You never lay a stone taller than it is wide. You never bed face a stone. That would be to set it up on edge the way it's done in veneer today. You would never take a stone that's, say, an inch thick and 6 inches wide and lay the 6-inch side visible so that it stands up and down. You would take that stone and lay it flat, especially also if the stone's grain runs like the pages in a book. You would want to lay the cover down. That way it lays in the wall the way that it was created in nature. If you laid it up the other way, those layers, those sheets would come off and create a weak point in your structure.
Welcome back to Round the County. From the basic task of stacking a cube to creating a one-of-a-kind monument, over the past 9 years, James Asbury's work has literally taken on many different shapes and sizes.
The simplest project I'd ever did, I suppose, was the pallet. But the pallet taught me a lot. Then later on, when I went to build my first wall, which is located in Mansfield, not very big at all compared to what I've done since. And that small little run of retaining wall, that's where I think I first truly fell in love with the craft. Short time later, not too far from my home, I did another retaining wall for a neighbor. That one actually was to prevent a water problem. And I don't know if I realized it at that point or not, but when I look at that wall today, I see that I had some natural talent. I look at that structure and the basic principles, I was already applying them, and I hadn't had any formal training yet, just stacking pallets. Later that same year, actually that same spring, I did a project in the Mainsburg area. And that was 2 very large retaining walls with a set of steps in them. Extremely proud of that project. I learned how much I could take. When it was all said and done, I did the cubic footage, and it came to over 30 tractor trailers, which just amazed me that I could stick with a project that long. It's still my biggest job to date. And then after that job was done, I ended up on a project which is the House Ruin Folly. It's a series of different elevations that resemble a foundation of a house. There's various sets of stairs in it and so on. And I was envisioning a mansion that had, gone to pot when I was building it. A folly being a structure that never was, but is built to look old, built to look like it's fallen apart. And even though at the time I still wasn't learned enough to know what a folly was, I had this idea of what if there was a house here where this backyard is, and what if it had several levels and lots of staircases, and you get the feel when you're in this thing that there might have been a house there. Later on the same property, I also built my first dry stone arch bridge. There's no pipe, there's no mortar, there's, like any of my other projects, it's exclusively dry. I built that after taking an extensive workshop class in Kentucky with the Dry Stone Conservancy. They taught us how to build a small arch, and then I just accepted the challenge. I tied into this thing, and I decided, well, either it's going to fall over or it's going to stand, but I think I know enough that I can pull off a bridge. I still remember the day that I pulled the forms, and when you do an arch, there's a lot of structural supports before the keystone's placed and all that. And I still remember pulling those forms out, these giant, massive wooden forms, and the thing stood. And the longest second of your life, I guess, is when you pull the forms out from under your first bridge, and the wooden form is falling down toward the ground, and you hear the dull thud of the wood hitting the ground, and then you hear nothing. And nothing is the greatest sound you can hear after you build an arch, because it means there's no stone crashing to the ground. I called everybody I knew, kind of went crazy. And I continued walling after that. I did Mercy Gate, I think, was my next arch. That was a very formal structure, Kalahari's was built to look very random rubble, very rural, very old world. Pick up a stone and use it. Where Mercy Gate, I designed that with more block-like stone, more straighter lines, more level. It took about a week longer than I thought it would because I spent so much time, setting a stone into the wall and looking at it and then drawing it out and maybe taking one of my tools and altering its shape and trying to really tighten it up. And also, I did not have the convenience of hydraulic machinery. And I had to put each stone up onto scaffolding or climb a ladder with an 80-pound stone or 120-pound stone, set it into place, look at its placement, decide whether I was happy with it or not, pull it out, take it back to the bench, pitch it and point it, and then climb the scaffolding again. And then once that was done, forming up the doorway and cutting each stone for the arch, the gateway's archway. It was a segmented arch, which means there's more geometry. Each stone has to have a certain set of angles to it, which I discern those angles in the old world style. I have a program that'll spit out the best way to cut each stone when I'm building an arch, but I have only used that computer program once because it feels like cheating.
The Alumnus Achievement Award is presented to the individual who graduated from the Pennsylvania College of Technology within the last 10 years and demonstrates the importance of education through noteworthy personal accomplishments or dedicated volunteer service. This year's recipient is a member of the class of 2002, James Asbury. From a few pallets of stone and a request from friends to build a stone wall, James became an entrepreneur. He told us that his most challenging project to date was a one-of-a-kind dry stone loop called the Tribute to Knowledge.
Of course, my biggest challenge to date was the Tribute to Knowledge, which up to this point is the world's only dry stone Hot Wheels track. And the way that project got started, I received a magazine in the mail, and I remember as I was reading it, I could not get this one article out of my head about this loop that this guy in Canada and a class of students had built, but apparently they had to tear it down because it was built inside. And so I was trying to break this project down. I was looking at the pictures and I was trying to break it down in my mind. How'd this guy do it? And I started thinking, well, if I draw it, maybe I can get this. I started to draw it from the ground up, and all of a sudden it hit me how he did it. Not too long after that, maybe a week after I looked at that magazine, I ran into someone from Penn College, Carl Bauer, as a teacher at Pennsylvania College of Technology.
I met James, I guess 2 years ago. Our class was on a field trip to a job site here in town, and James was doing some stonework, and he approached me and said, "Hey, I'd love to do something for the college." And he had this picture of a structure very similar to this. He said, "I'd love to reproduce this at the college." And I thought, geez, that'd be a great project to get the students involved. It was something unusual that they don't usually get a chance to do, and I kind of thought it was a great idea. And even though the construction class wasn't my class, I did work real close with James and with Mike Densher, the construction instructor, and we kind of made this happen, and we all decided as a faculty, as a department, that right here in the center bed, right in front of the campus, as a focal point, would be the best place for this project.
In the process of doing this, they moved the project from behind the school, behind the Earth Science Center, to the front of the building, right under the flag, which really meant a lot to me because now you cannot get into the Earth Science Center at Penn College without passing by this structure. And it's lit up at night, which is a thrill. I can't drive past the Earth Science Center without stopping and making sure it's still there.
My name's Mike Densher, and I'm an assistant professor of horticulture, and I teach landscape construction, which involves hardscape projects. We oftentimes look to do projects off campus or get involved with professionals within the industry. In this case, Jim Asbury offered an opportunity to cut stone and work with him in dry laying stone. This is a unique project because it's a freestanding arch without mortar. We did the project in conjunction with the masonry students from main campus under the direction of Glenn Luce, who is also a faculty member here at the college. So the overall project was a good opportunity for the students to get involved with industry and professionals within the industry and end up with something that has become kind of an icon here at the school, and we've developed this landscape around it in other classes, bringing the whole project to fruition.
We were here in the shop doing stonework, and Mike Densher called me and asked me if we'd like to be involved in this stone loop. And it was right up our alley. We were at the point of using real stone, natural stone, right off our mountain on the Bald Eagle mountain range. And what a good opportunity that we could actually go out on a live job off campus. We're used to cutting stone and laying it in a veneer fashion, similar to what they're doing on the fireplaces here. We rely on the mortar all the time to make up that little bit of difference. And when you're walling, you don't have that opportunity. You have to cut them and fit them in dry. So it was a good opportunity for our students to see structurally how the walls can be put together without mortar.
This is the most stressed out, incredible thing that I've ever created. Of all the subjects, artistic or practical, that I've ever done, this project sums up my worth, my career in stone. There's a photo that was put on the One College Avenue, the Alumni magazine. And that photo, you can see, it's a picture of me, and I was up on the scaffolding and I was overseeing the work. It's a picture of me at my most challenged and at my most stressed out. I was drinking Maalox with my coffee that week. I mean, that was an incredible challenge. And when we pulled the false work out and all the supports came down and out, and it stayed. I mean, that was the highest my blood pressure had ever been, the fastest my heart's ever beat in my life. Everybody cheering, yelling, hugging each other, and then there was more cheering. I turned around, and several students had seen what we were doing and actually come out of the Earth Science building. And they were going nuts, and the kids were going nuts, and I was going absolutely berserk. I was so excited. This is going to stand. This is going to stand for a long time, and it's going to stand for what people can do when they really put their mind to it. You know, it's just like education. It's just like pounding the books or whatever. You know, it stood for that.
The state's first and only certified dry stonewaller and a member of the Dry Stone Walling Association of Great Britain. Ladies and gentlemen, I am privileged to introduce to you the recipient of the 2006 Alumnus Achievement Award, a member of the class of 2002 who continues to support the mission of Penn College, Mr. James Asbury.
Wow. Of course, I'd like to thank my family, the great support, the college for an incredible education. Share with you this thought. I wake up every day in my own career working with stone, and I can't believe that I get paid to do something I love to do. I mean, I can't wait to go to work in the morning, and sometimes I don't want to come home. So if I had one wish for you graduates about to go out into the real world, sincerely hope that every day when you wake up, you find yourself saying, I get paid to do this. Thank you.
With all that James has already accomplished and created, which no doubt will be admired for many generations to come, there is still a major goal that he is determined to one day achieve.
I carry a list with me in my back pocket. The goals I've set for myself, and after I'd completed my first list, I wrote a second list of various goals. And it still amazes me. I knocked out a lot of those goals, one right after the other. The one thing that is definitely the hardest is making master craftsmen, because that's Olympus, you know, that is to be with the gods, making master craftsmen. And there's a lot of projects you have to do to make master. So it's it's no cakewalk. And I've promised myself, and I've promised some people very important to me, that I would make master. And even if I were to change careers, even if I were to, God forbid, suffer an injury where I couldn't do stonework full time, or if the bottom went out of it, I don't care. I'm still going to make master, even if I'm 80 when I hang that certificate on my wall. I'm going to make it.
Just seeing the enthusiasm and dedication that James puts into his work, along with the end results, I'm sure that one day he will achieve that goal of becoming a master craftsman. If you would like more information about his work and the art of dry stone walling, you can visit his website at mountaineerstone.com. I'm Ken Van Zandt. Thanks for tuning in, and until the next time, we'll be seeing you round the county.